Hi everyone. Well, my name's Boycie, and I live in Portugal, and I'm going to build a barrelback, a 20-foot barrelback. I'm going to make it a little bit longer from Glenelg Witt in America. And I bought the plans. These are the plans, and there's some more construction notes. And I'm going to build it down here initially in my basement, because that's all I've got at the moment. Because this is underneath the house, and I've turned the old kitchen into my workshop here, and we've got the pool kit and stuff over here, and just loads of storage, which we didn't even know we had when we started rebuilding this house. And the builder poked his head under a hole that accumulated at the front where some sand had fallen in, and said, we've got a basement down here. So we dug a set of steps, and anyway, here we are. The reason I can't put the boat together here is because all I've got is, I can show you, is the door. And obviously the completed boat won't go out through the door. So I have to put the frames together, I think, here to start off with. And got the plans for all of that. And there's all the plywood, many sheets. I've bought Sapele plywood. And then just got some normal, I think they call it Akumi or something, I don't know how to pronounce it. And then I've got this, well, you can see I've already started cutting out some 18mm marine ply, and there's some, if not most of the wood stacked up here, and then I've labelled it all so that I can see what's going to do for what. And tools wise, I've been accumulating. I've got my saw bench here, and which is going to be very useful, I think. I've modified it slightly because I've put a floor switch in here so that you can press it on, but you have to press your foot to get the power. And then if ever you get into trouble, you can just take your foot off the floor switch and it will cut it off. Never did quite understand why that wasn't done as a matter of some safety, because the blade is turning towards you with this thing. So if ever you get into a problem or it kicks, it's going to throw whatever, the lump of wood, back to you. And both your hands are here kind of trying to hold it, and then you're going to be fumbling down here for an off switch. Whereas with your left foot there, or right foot, you turn it off straight away. I bought myself a bandsaw. That's really good. Going to be really useful. And with all these things, of course, they produce a lot of dust. So I've got a hoover to hoover up the floor, but I've connected it via this here to this little thing. Well, initially I bought that. There was the drum sander, and of course it fills up in no time at all with dust. So I bought this, well, I actually had this dustbin. I found this on eBay, which is care of, I guess, Mr. Dyson, the Hoover man. So it just sucks down this pipe here, up that pipe rather, and the pipe I connect into, say, my saw bench there, and then you've got these blast gates. So you open the blast gate when it wants to stay there for each side or both sides, and then it will suck in. It'll go round the vortex. The sawdust drops out into the bottom, and the air goes up into the top, and the dust fits in there. And since I've done that, it's been very brilliant. It hardly needs any. In fact, I haven't changed any of the dust bags in the Hoover there at all. So that seems to work quite well. And well, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Good question. I'll think about that one. Why am I doing this? I've always wanted to. I've seen these wooden mahogany boats. You've seen them with the beautiful foredecks with the white birch strips or white whatever filling or something on the decks. Really high gloss varnish. They look beautiful. Gentleman speedboats, and this is a gentleman speedboat, but it's got the barrelback, which is here on the plans. In fact, I'll show you a bit later because I've already started making it. And I think it's going to take me probably a couple of years, because we've got to wait till our house is ready, and there's a double garage there where I can build up the frame on which to sit all these frames once I've built them. to actually start constructing the boat together. But in the meantime, it's going to take me quite a few weeks, if not months, to put all these frames together. There's a lot more in it. And why am I videoing it? There's lots of stuff. I saw Joshua Burks on his channel, and he made a zip boat, and he did a fantastic job. And he was like me. I don't think, I'm not a carpenter. I built a wooden boat before as a kid, and so this is kind of second attempt at doing something, but you know, with the intent of doing it properly. And obviously a little bit more money later on in life. You have to buy some proper wood for this, because you can't buy rubbish in the marine environment. It just will not last, and it won't look good. If you don't build this barrelback right, it'll look rubbish. And so you've got to put the time and energy, you've got to have the right intention. And I'm sure that a lot of things, I mean, the learning curve is already as steep up there. I'm learning as I go. And you've got the Glenelg forum if things go wrong. There's also the Building a Boat in Plywood by Glenelg, and that's very informative, which you need to read in conjunction with all the notes along the way to figure out how to do it. So my intention was to be a little more specific, to sort of make this video really with intent to somebody else like myself starting to build a wooden plywood boat, speedboat or whatever, well, particularly a Glenelg one, and to go into a little more detail as to how you do things, not just show you a frame that's been built and say, there you go, there's frame 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, because there's a lot of stuff involved in actually building the frames. And as we go along, we'll go into detail along the way. So I guess if you're just kind of, you know, you're interested in cruising around looking at people building boats and you don't want all the detail, then this probably isn't for you. But if you're interested, and obviously what I would like is some feedback from, you know, if there's people out there that have done it, know better than me, and I'm sure there's a lot of them will say, in Numpty, you shouldn't have done it that way, you should do it this way. And I'd be more than grateful to have any advice as we go along. In fact, I'll probably ask for it as we go, as I've done already a couple of times. So that's probably why. If you like it, then subscribe to the channel, and it'll be interesting to see how many people like it, who comments what, and whether it gets favourable feedback or whatever. But that's my plan. So I've already started building. I'll get on to the second, but I'll just get the bits out and show you what I did and how I did it so far, and then we can talk about constructing the frames up and see how we go with that. So, Boycie's Barrelback, here we go, head down. Building the frames and the plans. This is sheet 2 of 4. There's various bits. This is jumping on a bit. This is going to be the boat set up on the frame, and then you're going to put the frames on and the stem section, and really start putting it together with the longitudinals. This one is way up in front once this boat has been pretty much built, where to put the motor in and the deck framing and so on. And that's a point. This, I mean, you can see this is planned for I think it's a V8, a V6 or something, but something like over 150 to 250 horsepower, if not more. And I quite like the idea of putting in a couple of electric motors, or maybe one electric motor, but 2 for redundancy. Put the batteries along the bottom here, and have an all-electric boat. I know, particularly in America, you love the V8s, and I know the sound and all the rest of it, the V8 motor, you just can't beat it. But this is a day and age, you know, my next car is almost certainly going to be an electric one, so why not an electric boat? The technology is out there, and hopefully to get sort of 6 to 8 hours of useful boating out of it, which would be nice. But I've got to kind of research all of this. I've got a contact, and this is all going to come later, so that hopefully won't happen. So this is where we are at the minute, where these are all the frames. 1, 2, 3, sorry, 1, 2, 3, where's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, sorry 7, what am I talking about? So that's at the front with the deep chine section, and this is where I'm going to start on the back on frame 1. And then I'm going to move to the transom, and do that. The reason being, I will explain. So if we move to the larger plan, you can see what Glenelg's done is given us half the frames on the basis that through a centre line you can reverse it and you can draw the other half. So if I start off with frame 1, here it is, frame 1 at the bottom, and there's the keel point, and I've highlighted it up. So there's the chine point. The shear point there is the outer edge where the deck meets the I don't know what that would call the upright part of the boat, and the carlin point is there. That's where you get an inboard deck structure, and these are just reinforcing frames, obviously. And then there's the centre line. So the first thing I did was to draw the centre line onto my big desk. So I did that there and did it here, and then I drew that line there so that I could realign this, ready to turn it over. And then what Glenelg say is get yourself some carbon paper. Carbon paper I used to use at school as a kid, 30 something years ago. But there it was on eBay. So you get 2 lots of carbon, and you put one down and one up, and you put them underneath, and obviously all the way around the frame. So you realign your centre line, and then I put some tacks in there, just some little pins to hold it still. And then I just, with a pencil, I just started going round on frame 1, and you just colour these in like being back at school, and you go all the way around your frame, and you transfer that to the bottom of the plan. So this is the frame 1, and this is frame 1 here. I take them away, and this is actually the transom that I've also drawn in. So now we've got the replicated outline on this side, and the reason that we do that is that we can then turn this over and flip the whole thing over, realign the centre line marks with the centre line on the table, and then do exactly the same the other side, because we want the picture of the whole frame. And there, that's what I've done here, and there is the all-important frame 1. So why do we want to do that? You want somewhere to check that when you've cut this piece of wood out, that you've actually got something that is the shape that it should be, which I hope will make sense. And you've now got to transfer this to your piece of wood. So now what you can do is you put your piece of wood underneath the there, under the plans. Let's say you're going to make this upright piece here. You can just stick that underneath the plan. Sorry, I'm only running out of hands here. Put that on top of the piece of wood, and now you can just do the same here, and it will transfer that line to your piece of wood. And hey ho, you have got a line in which to cut. So that's a kind of how. There's a bit more technical stuff in the middle that took me some time to figure out, because you've got to work out how thick this piece of wood needs to be from kill 1, because I bought wood, it was 80 centimeters, and if I put that there, I thought, well, that's probably not deep enough, not thick enough. And the plans, I have to say, come with some other instructions and a list of wood, and it talked about wood up to 10 inches, but it wasn't very specific as to how you calculate that. And so that had me stumped for a little bit, and then I sat down and looked and read the plans, and then you've got this, a setup level for the frames and the transom. And that was the key to all of this, because on this plan, if I show you, you've got a setup level. There it is. And on these setup levels, everything is 3 inches from the setup to the top of this piece of wood here. And it says it on a few bits and pieces, but it's basically 3 inches, and that is going to give us the top of that frame section there. And the reason that's important is because that's the floor. So when you turn this boat over and you want to put a floor plank, obviously the floor planks all want to be level, and that makes perfect sense. So you have to draw the setup level in, and that's what I did here. I marked the setup there, transferred it to the table, and then I measured down, and there's my 3-inch line. And then from frame 1 up to there gave me the depth of my piece of wood, which is, as you can see, about 155 millimeters. I will be working in millimeters as we're in Europe here. So that meant from that line that when I came to do frame 3, that was going to be down there. From that 3-inch line to frame 3 is 190 millimeters, and down to the kill point at 6, something like 243 millimeters. And that's the depth of that wood to bring that up to there. So if we've got frame 6, you can see there it is quite a deep piece of wood, quite short, and frame 7 probably not quite as deep. So that looks, 5 and 6 look to be about the deepest frames. So that's where we got 6 from there. And so I need a piece of wood 250 deep, really. It's about 10 inches. And I don't have a piece 10 inches because I didn't read the Glenelg instructions very well. So I've had to order that, and that's going to take a little while as we're coming up to Christmas, and it won't be available till the new year. So that's why I couldn't go any further really with frame 1, because I really want to make that frame 1 at what is that, 120 out of one piece of wood. I don't want to glue stuff because this is really a major structural part of the boat, and that needs to be in one piece of wood, and then just to cut that out. So it kind of stumped me a bit there. So I've ordered those pieces of wood, and I thought I'll move on to the transom, and I did the same with the transom, and there it is there, the transom, and it did the same lines underneath. And then I transferred to, I cut out roughly a piece of the 18mm plywood that I had, put it underneath, and then put the carbon paper under, and then I just traced that line onto my transom, and then I was able to cut it out. But not before I had read this, because there is a camber on there, and it is 12 degrees on the camber boards. And it's, where has it come? Allow an extra material at the edge on the forward side, cut out at 12 degrees bevel all around. So extra material. So you cut this line to this line here to cut the wood, and then you can see just about there, hopefully you can just see it cambers up, and that's obviously because the deck is coming down slightly at 12 degrees, and from the sides it's coming in slightly. So 12 degrees, so you have to, well, what I did was I cut about 5mm all the way round extra wood on that one, and then I had to find a way to cut a 12 degree camber on the wood, and the way I did that was to use a good old protractor, and I just lined that up there, and there's a 12 degree line, and I did it a good deal more accurate so that I could be spot on, and it's on 12 degrees there. Then I got myself a setup. Let me see if I can find it. So that's what I was after. This, you can adjust that by setting that on your lines on the table. I set that to 12 degrees, and then what I did was that I just transferred that to my jigsaw, and then by putting that flat and up against the blade, I got to be within a degree at least, I would think. And so with that I was able to go around my piece of wood around the transom around the outside and cut it at a 12-degree angle. I couldn't think of any other way of doing it because it's curved. And so the jigsaw is obviously the beast for doing that, and there's probably another way of doing it, but that's the way I did it. So I cut out around the transom, and I can show you the transom is there. And that's obviously after framing the inside. But if I show you there, you can see quite clearly the bevel, and that's what I did round the outside of the transom. And then I had to cut some more wood on the inside. So if I get that up on the table, I'll so this is my transom. The bit along the bottom there is perpendicular, it's flat, and everywhere at the sides has got that camber for the frames to come in, and they will eventually notch into the deck timbers will be here, the keel timber will be along the bottom here, but it says on the plans that you've got to notch it in through the frame and through the plywood to give it a good base on which the longitudinals will sit. But that's that comes way in the future when it's sitting on its frame, and I won't be doing that just yet. I've got to move on a little bit. So then the next thing was to build this frame, and this is on the inside of the boat, and this is clearly reinforcement. This piece of wood, it says it's not shown, but there's a doubler at the top, and so what I've done is to build a double thickness piece of wood. I had some, this is 1-inch wood or 25mm, and this is 50mm, so I was able to just do it out of one piece, and it's there. It's a one long straight bit, but that was like a huge piece of wood. In fact, here it is. I cut it out here, and that's what it looked like when, and I thought, wow, you know, this is just ridiculous extra weight to the boat that doesn't seem to be doing anything. I'm going to notch in 1 inch into there. There is stacks of wood plus plywood behind it, and the other side I've got these camber boards yet to finish, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections there of 2-inch wood which is cambered, so that this is going to give this the barrelback shape. And so this is facing forward, and this is looking forward from behind the boat. So there's your 4 strips of wood, the 5th in the middle, 6 down the bottom, and at the bottom you see it's cambered. They're the same camber, all 3 sections here, 1, 2, 3, but as you get to the top they seem to move it out. So at the bottom the camber touches the plywood either side, so there's going to be an awful lot of cutting and planing to go on here. And then at the top, I can't find that distance yet, what this one here is meant to be. It just says this distance will vary and increase towards the top, but hold the camber. So I guess cut all these pieces of wood together so that the camber's all the same, and then perhaps fit them. This one to the bottom will be straightforward, and then this one will poke out slightly here, won't it? So then I can cut that off, and then just I suppose see how that goes. But that's got to look like that at the top. So it's very difficult looking on a 2D plan to figure that one out, but it will look like that from the top and that from the bottom. That's the next thing that I've got to do on this. But for the meantime, let's go back to the frames, because we had the same old setup level which is there. So the setup level, I came off the plans and I actually drew on the wood. I'm kind of slightly regretting that, because I did it in a pen rather than a pencil. And I think that will possibly show. This frame is just loose at the minute because I'm going to glue it, and I drew the center line I put forward there just to remind me that what was going on. So from the setup level we come down the 3 inches, because that's where that determines this piece of wood here, and that piece of wood I believe was 75mm. There it was, and I had 80mm, so I put it on and then I just planed it off. So I planed this flat so that I would know it would be at 90 degrees. And the way I did that was with an electric plane. I bought this brilliant piece of kit because it comes with its own sawdust bag on it, and then you have this which you slide in and you adjust that side level there, the gate obviously to the side of your piece of wood, but that's your 90 degrees. So between that and the base of your planer is 90 degrees. So by holding that flat against the side, I was able to just run along the whole length of the transom, and then you just set the depth here of the blades, and you can see what I was doing, 0.4 of a millimeter each time, so it's just doing it very gently, and you fill up that bag with ease. And the reason I like this is because it's got 2 blades on the bottom of this, and so it cuts superbly well. 18 volt with a 5 amp hour battery, they last forever. They are really good. So I've been accumulating all my tools. I've got the drill and circular saw, and I've got a cutter, I don't know what you call those things, but one of those, a light, and I've even bought myself a metal cutter, disc cutter with that. Sanding, this is brilliant. I found when I'm coming to do, I'll tell you, I'll come back to this, but if you want a vertical sander to a line, you can sand this off so precisely, and that is how I managed to get these pieces of wood. I mean, this, I see this, there's a guy called Leo building a boat out near Seattle called Tally Ho. Hats off to Leo. He is just an amazing carpenter, sailor, boat builder, shipwright, whatever you want to call them. And they do these frames, and they just slip into place. And I just think, oh my God, how would I do that? So I sort of thought, I'm going to do that. I want to build, and there it is. I put that piece of wood in. Well, I did this piece of wood first. I cut this. Perhaps I should start from the beginning. This was 80mm wide, so what I could do was, obviously, that was the original line that I set it on there, and then I realised, of course, we've got the camber, and this has to follow the camber. So the first thing I did was just drew that line at that distance there, and then set my jigsaw and cut my 12-degree camber, plus a little bit extra so that I could plane this down. And then when I came around here, I just drew the line underneath. So now I had a line with which to cut to. So I just followed that with the jigsaw cutter, and then I attached it to this and then planed it down, which was went very well. So then I did this piece at the top, the round piece, and I did that exactly the same. Just put it was a straight piece of wood, and then I could cut the 2 sides, mark underneath with the pencil, and then turn it over so it's at the top, and then use my jigsaw cutter, transfer that line, cut that line a couple of millimeters outside, and there's one of the learning curves that I found, that I actually started off with about 5 millimeters extra, and 5 millimeters of that is a lot of wood you've got to shift, and it has to be pretty exact, that curve. So I found it's better to get your line dead right, dead in, you know, on the button, and then perhaps do 1 or 2 millimeters extra, and then you don't have to do quite so much sanding, but you have sanding, but you do have to get it right, and that worked for me quite well. So that I could put those in, and then I just had these last fillets to put in, and they were the same. Cut the camber at the side there, and then by marking on these 2 pieces of wood underneath, the lines were pretty accurate, but there was a little bit of gap on each one of those. And then I found by going to my sander over there, I could then just sand up to that line. You know, if it was just slightly a millimeter in here but nothing there, then I could draw a little pencil line, and on that sander I could get it absolutely spot on. And I ended up, I'm so pleased with that. I've never done carpentry like this, but with a little bit of time, I've done that as well. By planing, you've got to, yeah, I chipped that off. Fortunately, that will be inside. It doesn't really matter. But you've got to put a block up against it, haven't you? And then when you're planing this way, because there's a grain to the wood, and if you're planing that way, you're planing into the wood, and it doesn't work. So you have to go this way to come down over the grain, and of course put a block of wood in there to stop that, to doing that. So I did that there and managed to do that one properly. There you go. That's the learning curve, isn't it, as we go along. So this is kind of this side complete. I've got some screws in here, so I've taken this off because I can now epoxy this down and let it set, and then I can turn it over, and I've got to then start making these, because until I get some more wood I'm not going to really go much further. So I might just do another video of that happening. These I can't fix. Well, I can fix with screws, but I can't glue, because we're going to have to, as I said, fit the longitudinals. So this, for instance, is the keel timber, and I've already marked some of these out here. So I've got to cut that out and go through the plywood. Well, obviously, if I've got my camber on the other side, that's no good. It'd be easier just to be able to saw through that into that line, and then cut this line out here somehow to make that completely flat. There's another lesson, I think, on cutting. And that will give the board, the keel timber, this plus the plywood on which to bed, so it's got a good mating bed there to glue and to screw, so that won't come off. And then once all these longitudinals, and I think there's 5 here along the bottom, and then there's going to be some more up the top, some deck timbers on the top up there. That will be something for the future when we're in the frame, mounted all the frames together, and we're putting longitudinals in. And then once they're in, then I can refit these the barrelback effectively to the transom and glue it and screw it, and then I'll probably epoxy this. So yeah, that's all. No reason why not. I can protect it with that. So that is the transom. And then the other thing I've done is this. There is the stem section, and that took a bit of head scratching, a lot of work. It's 3 layers, you can see, of 18mm ply, marine grade ply, epoxied together. And this is the breast hook, which is 2 epoxied together. I've screwed them through here, and this one fits there. This bottom layer just cuts in on the back of the stem, and the top one covers it. And so eventually we're going to get the sheer wood coming round the bend of the boat here, and it will cut into here, hopefully in a nice joint, and then it will be decked over the top. But this is where it will all meet at the front, and the breast hook is the start. You can see how wide this boat flares out on either side. So I'll get the plans back up and show you what I've done. So here we are back again. I apologise that I've been building away and not showing the videos as promised of me doing the bits as we go along, but I've had quite a few troubles getting my video camera. I bought basically a cheap Chinese camera which said it would get an external microphone on, but it didn't have the plugs. So I bought another one which had a plug, but it was the wrong plug. I bought a converter and it still didn't work. So I thought, to hell with this, I'll sell them on eBay, and I bought myself a GoPro Hero 7, which is what we've got here. And I bought a converter plug to put my extension microphone in, so that the camera could be over there and I would have a microphone here where you could presumably hear me a bit better. I hope this sound comes out okay, but it doesn't work. The sound input on the GoPro says not available, and I don't know why. It's got a converter, and the converter plug fits the jack on my extension microphone, which is a wireless system. So you've got the base there, and you have a little thing here which you plug your microphone into, and you can see the machines, the 2 boxes are talking to each other, but it's just not going into the camera, and I don't know why. And I've just had a real bad day of electronics, because the microphone box doesn't seem to be working too well, because it has a little microphone on this extension, the wireless box here, and if you take the plug out, it will use the you can see on the base station, you can see the sound, you can see the sound bar going up and down. But if you plug the microphone that I will put up here on my lapel, it stops on the base station. So there appears to be a fault with both of them, and so I thought, to hell with this, I've just got to get on and at least start making a video. Anyway, that's the moans over, the electronic gripes. I wonder if someone can tell me how to get sound onto a Hero 7 when it doesn't want to work. Anyway, back to the stem. Having done, as I explained, some of the transom, the next bit I can do is the stem, and until I get my wood I can't really build the rest of the frames because I need that extra deep bit of wood at the bottom, which I don't have. But this I do because I have several sheets of 18mm marine ply, and so I can cut these out, as you see I've done. So this is the first plan, and there's the all-important setup plan, and you can see that the setup level is actually this bit of wood here, which is the motor stringer, and the motor stringer is where the engine will sit either side, and the weight will be spread across the frames of the inside of the boat, which makes perfect sense. That's 3 inches deep, and then you've got that to the top of the frames, which is going to give us the level floor that we need, obviously, to walk on when the boat is finally turned over and fitted out. So here's the stem section, and it's this weird shape here. You can see that there's a notch in there because this is the keel timber, and there's some bits and pieces going on here, which tells us that that's I have to convert these back to metric to make sense, but 2 3/4 by a 4 inch. So that looks like 2 3/4 down that way and a 4 inch wide keel, and that notches in to this bit here, and there's a continuous keel all the way down there, and then that will eventually be faired in to shape for the boat because of the varying chines, and that will obviously differ as we get up to the front of the boat. So the shape of the keel, the stem, is here. So there's the inner contour, there's the notch for the stem, notch for the keel, sorry, and then this is the notch for frame 7. So there's frame 7 at the front, and that will notch into this bit here, and then 3 bits of wood which go up there, and then there's a breasthook up here, and the breasthook is another story, and there is the shape of the breasthook as depicted by Glenelg. 2 layers of 3/4 ply, see the assembly detail above. So you can see this is the top section of the stem section, and this will eventually be faired off, but at the moment it is square. So that shows us, doesn't really show us a correct depiction at this stage of building, because this should be really out there. So that's a little bit confusing, but this actually is the shape of, I finally worked out, of 2 pieces of wood, not just the one. But if I looked up here, then the top section, well, that fits on the top of the stem, and that looks, so this will come out here and be fitted and screwed onto the top, but the bottom one seems to sit underneath the back of it there, but doesn't encroach in there, and that's not what this shows here, because that seems to say that this section, the bottom section, comes in halfway along the stem, because that then forms the 40mm, I think it is 30 or 40mm, for the shear line to come in there and to connect to the stem to give us the shape of the boat, and this gives it its form, and obviously this breasthook gives it its strength. So after much deliberation and head scratching, I went on to the Glenelg forum, and they effectively said to me, "Stupid numpty, read the book on how to build a plywood boat." And then it's got that has got a much better picture of this, and what it shows is that the lower piece of wood is indeed that, and it's notched there. The upper piece of wood is that, and that sits on top. So as you can see, the lower piece of wood comes halfway up the stem, and so that doesn't show that, so that should really be like that, I think, to show it, and that would have made life a whole lot easier for me anyway. But there you go. That's probably just a slight inaccuracy, but whatever. We got there eventually, and thank you very much to those on the forum, because then we were able to cut them out. So the way to do this was pretty much the same. I put I rough cut my piece of plywood out, way oversized, and then I put it underneath, and then I used just the one sheet of the carbon paper, because I only wanted to mark this line onto the piece of wood. So by putting that, and you can see where I've drawn on all of the lines around here, and I could transfer that to the piece of wood, and then I would cut it, and what I did is I cut it here, because this was fairly on, about 5mm proud, which was too much really. It's because you just got too much wood to remove. And this bit here I didn't quite understand, because this is obviously for the keel, and so you don't want that piece of wood, you want this cut out. So why would they put that in there? Okay, it's an outer section contour. Maybe I've done this wrong. I don't know. I don't think so, because everywhere says, like here, this is where the keel section attaches to the stem. So that piece of wood has to come out, I believe. At least that's what I've done. If I've done it wrong, then I've done it wrong. So that I did, and there it is there. But it wasn't like that when it came off the board, because this piece here had to be cleaned up and fed to a nice curve, and the same on the other side, and I had quite a bit of wood to remove. So how did I do that? Yeah, that was quite difficult. And the way I asked again on the forum how people did this, and the best way, it seems, is to use your angle grinder with this sanded pad. It's folded into little pleats here, and is very abrasive. This whizzes around at high speed, and it takes off a lot of wood. You got to be very careful, but it gets it very near to the shape that you want. And where else? Here it is. I used a spoke shaver. Bought that on eBay, and there's the blade down there. You can adjust the depth of it, and then by pulling that towards you, it will follow the shape of a curve far better. And so after a lot of elbow grease, I got that to work, and it was quite good. I probably took out a little bit too much wood, so I'm probably a couple of millimeters inside that line, because once I cut it, you can lay it on the plans again, and to see that it is where you think it is. And obviously the two important bits is that bit there has to be exactly there, and I ended up with a slight proud bit of wood there, so I had to plane that down, because when that breasthook was attached to the top, then that had to be at that angle, because that's the angle of the foredeck. And this bit here obviously has to be correct. So those are pretty much spot on. The inside edge of this, I figured, you know, I might have to just take this on the chin, a couple of millimeters, because this is just inside the boat. And as long as these bits here, where the frame fits the stem, the breasthook, sorry, and the keel, then you're good. The outside will follow that, which it did, and obviously the shape will be faired off like that at a later date, once all of the frames are in, and we're fairing off to fit the plywood to the bottom, because this is a cold ply boat. In fact, 3 layers of plywood in different directions, laid up in sheets probably about 20 centimeters wide, and then glued together. So there's a lot of fairing got to be done with all the frames and the stem, etc., along the way. So that's about where I am at the moment. And I took these apart, the 3 of them, and then I glued them together, as you can see there. It's a hell of a strong piece of wood. There's nothing much going to break that unless you go crashing into something at 30 miles an hour. And the same with the breasthook, 2 lots of 18mm plywood. It's as solid as a rock, that lot. So and quite heavy as well. This whole boat is going to be quite a lot. It's going to be over a ton, I think, by the time we put an engine or batteries and electric motors or a V8 or whatever. I mean, I would imagine a V8 is going to be 250, 300 kilos. By the time you get a petrol tank in there, it's going to weigh quite a bit. So this boat is built upside down on this frame, this jig, and then once you've got it all painted, and obviously skinned and painted, then you turn it over, put it on a frame to hold the boat or a trailer, and then you fit out the inside. All fun to come. So I'll crack on with the rest of the framing for the transom on the aft end. There's a lot of wood to be done there, so I'll try and video some of that and fill that in later.